Alright. DayzUnderground Community Meeting, 12th of January 2025. I'm deafened right now, but it's not going to be long until we're getting underway. Got a few topics for this one, some of which are kind of old, and we've already had one topic that's just been pulled out because it was dated, we will say. Though I've got some that I'm quite eager to see. Anyway, we're close to the time, so I'm going to undeafen, and I guess we're gonna get underway. Alright, the moment is almost upon us. I'll just let the stragglers trickle in. In case anyone's showing up for the first one of these things, I would highly recommend that you go on to sound pack and sounds deactivated, at least for the first bit of the meeting, because it gets a little bit crazy with the user has joined your channel, user has joined your channel. I will be recording, so anyone that's not here, I guess, or misses a portion of the meeting can see it later. Also applies, obviously, if you're here for the start and then have to go. Give it a couple more minutes and then I'll do the rundown for anyone that may not have been here, because the floodgates have opened, in they come. I'll wait until it gets to 2 minutes past and then I'll start my spiel. Mostly for the benefit of anyone that's not really been here before. I imagine everyone else knows how it works by now. Okay. So,
I was just going to say before you start,
yep.
there's a lot of new people on here who usually don't use TeamSpeak. If you need a Reddit member tag or a group tag of any sort, just DM me.
You heard the man. If you need anything, spam his DMs, I guess. Right. So, for anyone that's coming in here that's not familiar with how these meetings are run, generally, if there's no one else that's talking or in the queue, we sort of go for a free-flowing discussion. Feel free to interject. But if someone is currently, like, in the middle of giving their piece, giving a tangent, or speaking, then just in the chat, put in a Q like this, uppercase, lowercase, don't really care. And I will do my best to keep on top of it. I'm not infallible, so if I mess up with the order, of course, someone correct me, but I'll be trying to keep an eye on the chat and see whenever people are trying to get in line to speak. Though, aside from that, if people have something to say it. And if someone else is speaking, that's when you'd use the whole queue thing. Anyway, of course, because I'm recording with OBS, my streamer mode is kicked in, so I can't see all of the names of the people that have put in topics here. So we will be doing the topics of the people that are actually here to present them first. Already had a couple of topics that either I've been told the person's not going to be here, in the case of Matt, or I've been told to not bother speaking about the topic entirely because it's from a little while ago. More than a little. Anyway. Okay, looking at the list, and admittedly not being that good at skim reading, if there is anyone here that has their topic that they would like to open the floor with, and they're chomping at the bit to get into it, or maybe if you're here now but you've got some commitment that you need to be going for at some point soon, then we can obviously get your topic out of the way first. Aside from that, if there's no one that's eager to jump the gun, then we can just start at the start in the chronological order, I guess. Right. On this first topic, I'm kind of going to defer to you lot because this was from a while ago. It was from October, and it was posted by Elias from the Revenant, and it was talking about having a discussion at least of adding it back in a whitelist day or something along those lines. I'll admit I've not been paying much attention to the conversations going on in the Discord over the holiday period. I don't know if this was already discussed. If anyone, of course, has anything they'd like to bring up on the point, I might as well read out the whole thing. A healthy conversation to judge the interest or uninterested in adding back a whitelist day or something along those lines. I don't know what this could look like. Whitelist only for the first couple of days at the beginning of each wipe. 1 day a week whitelist only. 1 day a month. Something along those lines. Just want to kick up ideas and the possibility of it. I think it would be good to have something of the sort to give people more incentive to apply. Just want to see how the community feels about it. Anyone have any thoughts about whitelist days? It's certainly something that we've talked about quite a bit before, and people have been... True, I have seen some quite juicy queues. Okay, Vadim, go ahead.
I'm just going to throw this out there. I think it's been discussed before, but I don't know if there can be some sort of priority queue for whitelist members. I know with like staff and admins, it's been kind of an iffy thing because it might mess with their priority queue and so forth, but just throwing something like that out there instead of outright whitelist days, we don't want to kill the momentum that Doug has had before it's, really set hold, I guess.
Joe, go ahead.
So we've been exploring this, and I don't want anyone to think that we don't sympathize with the long queues. I know it's annoying, but I think there are certain facts that people in here especially will be interested to hear before campaigning for whitelist time. One specifically is that a lot less of the people connected than you think are whitelisted. Quite often, we'll have a full server of about 90 people. Probably about 30 of those will be whitelisted. So you imagine if we turn on private hours during that time, we will have a 30 out of 90 server. On the topic of priority queue, we have been exploring ways that we could get priority queue for members without impeding the ability of staff to do their job. We think we found a workaround. So we've had some help developing a workaround, but we're not 100% sold on it, and we want to hear what you guys think about it before we make any decisions. Essentially, the workaround is this. Members would have priority queue over non-members, but when an admin is in the queue and they absolutely need to be in the server at that very moment to deal with an active cheater or something like that, they would be able to kick everyone in front of them from the queue, essentially, and get to the front. So there'll be a manual override that would allow the admin to get on immediately. The only problem with this is, if there's 30 people in queue and an admin needs to get in, they're kicking 30 people. So we're a little bit concerned that maybe attitude towards this workaround will be good until we kick 30 people from the queue, if that makes sense, and then suddenly it will turn on its head. So yeah, I'll open it to other people to discuss that. We're not fully sold on it, but I think if we had a lot of positive feedback from it, then maybe we'd go for it. At least on a trial basis.
Sarge is next in queue.
Yes, I actually really like that idea. I was actually gonna set up for when I queued my place. But anyway, if there's 30 people in the queue and an admin absolutely needs to get in, it's not like people I don't think are gonna complain as much because all of them are getting kicked out of the queue and all of them can just get back in the queue. It's not like you're gonna all of a sudden have
Everyone
60
in
people in
front
queue
of the
now.
admin will be kicked from the queue. So if the admin gets in the queue and
Oh,
there's, I don't know, 15 people in front of them and 15 behind, the people behind wouldn't get kicked.
well, here's how I see it though, right? Like if there's an active hacker on, odds are, and maybe there's situations where, an admin was already waiting in queue or something, but you're probably just not even in queue and you just jump in and then instantly do that. So you're already gonna most likely be at the back of the queue anyway.
In
But I
response to
think that's fair.
hackers not being a very frequent issue, they have been more of a frequent issue recently. Just be mindful that we will have to use the scram button. Like, it will have to happen at times. And if you're a whitelist member and you're first in queue out of 30, and an admin jumps in behind you, you're getting kicked from queue.
No, I mean, that's all I wanted to say is I think that's a fair trade-off. As long as there's a big announcement and make sure that everybody's aware, hey, this could potentially happen. You've been warned, if we need to get in. Then I
I'm
think that's
going
fine.
to put a message in the community meetings channel, just while we keep discussing this, asking for your opinions. Just thumbs up or thumbs down, please. Let me know what you think.
Guess it's me in queue now. I definitely think it's worth trialing, but I'll leave it to the people in the community meetings channel. Though, Paul, you're next after me. British Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just quickly. I think it's a great idea. I just wondered if you could perhaps roll it out a little bit like you did Wipe Day, so make it like a couple of hours a day instead of like the whole just everything or nothing. Just like try it a few hours a day, see what that does. Like the most peak part of the day.
I don't think this is something we'd be able to toggle easily, no, because
okay.
this would take the form of a client mod.
All right. Just a suggestion. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm done.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say on this topic? I don't think I've missed any cues. Go ahead, Oz.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the only time an admin would really boot everyone in front of them is like if there is a cheater or something like immediately urgent on the server. If they're, for example, like casually investigating a ticket that, has just been placed and things like that, that likely wouldn't be enough reason to boot a bunch of people in front of them. It would really be for immediate needs only. And it would give a big chunk of well, I think a big thing too is just the sheer incentive for whitelist too. I don't know if we've touched on that. Like this would probably be like prio queue for whitelisted members would probably be one of the biggest draws to applying for whitelist as well, which is something we've been looking for a long time, is ways to sweeten the deal with whitelist. So
Yeah, we've discussed that a lot in the staff team, how we're not really giving you enough for for whitelist status at the moment. And we couldn't find a neat way to alleviate that, but this maybe would be a good way.
I think this is good in two senses, that it adds more value to being a member and being whitelisted, but it also doesn't like completely screw over everyone else. That's I don't know, like just by like, hey, you can't play on the server on this day and this day. Go fuck yourself, I guess, because I guess that could rub a lot of people the wrong way, especially if they're like, oh well, what if my base gets raided on a whitelist day? What am I supposed to do?
The other thing this does fix is, obviously we've had problems on wipe days where a lot of people want to play, and occasionally we've whitelisted the server, and that's given some negative feedback. If we have prior queue for whitelisted members, then I don't believe that would need to happen.
That makes sense. Well, I'd say Ooh, continue, whoever was going to speak.
I was gonna. Is the floor open or?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say on the idea of whitelist days in general. I think it's really too early to tell because I don't know. I don't want to see the recent influx of all these new players and popularity of the server get hurt because of that. We don't know how long this is going to last at the end of the day. Still, a problem going forward into like the next wipe, and I think there's maybe more of an urgent need for a discussion then.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to stop the current momentum at all, right? By blocking people out on certain days. So I think this system, if everything works technically, then I mean it's something that could be worth trying. But yeah, and also yeah, what was that? Sarge, Doc, what he said about the fact that this might not last forever. Like I know right now, the last couple weeks, it's been brutal queue at times. It's a good problem to have, right? It's a double-edged sword. I think most of us can agree on that. But it does suck when you're trying to play and our members are not able to get in through a 30-person queue. So yeah, I mean, we don't know how long this is going to last, and we could go through this, put in this complicated system to put in a prio queue to ultimately, not even need it a little while from now. But let's hope we do. So,
and I would also tack on to that if the server popularity does subside, this system will be unnecessary essentially. If an admin needs to get onto the server right now and there's a slot for them, then the override doesn't get used and no one ever notices it exists.
Right. Anyone else have any further things they'd like to say on this topic? But I'd say that's been pretty productive so far. Especially given it was a really old, bloody topic that's been sitting there for a couple months.
Please, all of you, vote on that Discord message I put in the community meetings channel. I will copy a link to it and put it in the chat. We want to hear your feedback, and if you don't want us to do it, then we also want to hear that.
Am I right in thinking that the community meetings channel can be seen by non-whitelisted members? Or is that still like only seen by whitelisted members?
I think that's only visible by whitelisted members right now.
Makes sense.
Oh, okay. Unwhitelisted seem to be able to see it.
Alright. I think that was a thing that was done a little while ago, but I don't think they can contribute to anything in there. But I mean, they might actually be able to add in reactions. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how reactions work, but I know they can't like put in any messages. It's just that they can see it to raise awareness of the community meeting as a concept. So
it's visible, but they can't write topics.
Yeah. Okay. Cassia, you're next in queue.
Okay. Because that we talk about whitelisted and put purity on the list. Like you tell them if you're gonna put a whitelist day and it's gonna be only like that, we were gonna have like 40 players on the server. But if you're gonna do it that with purity in a queue, I think it'll always be like, I don't know, 5-6 members. And even if you get kicked from the queue because admin need to go like in, we can always go back to the queue and we will be priority. So I don't think that this is gonna be that big problem to people when they're gonna be like from third place to, I don't know, 6 on a queue. So it's gonna be like win. Yeah, I'm gonna see like it's gonna be win-win because players can be no whitelisted players can play. Whitelisted players can play too, but they need to wait. But they don't need to wait that long. Does that have sense?
Right. Any further things? Because I feel like we have hit the nail on the head here. Of course, once again, go vote on Joe's message in the community meetings channel. I need to remember to probably say not to delete your message when all the other ones are purged. Like, leave that in there and people can vote on it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much done its job already.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just wanted to hear what people think of that. Obviously, the opinion in here will be somewhat biased because most people in here are members, and
True.
they would be the ones getting priority queue. But yeah, we want to know if it's worth trying.
I was gonna say it's not strictly taking anything away. It's not as extreme as a whitelist day, obviously. So it's not like it's strictly taking anything away from non-members.
No,
Yeah.
the average non-member will take slightly longer to get into the
Yeah.
server with this system.
Yeah, more incentive to apply is definitely a good thing, because I feel like a lot of there's a fair few people that would probably look at at least like taking out the obviously whole prio cube thing, they would look at the membership and just see it as something of a nothing burger, I guess, if they're not interested in like the stories and stuff on the Reddit and the CCE, if they just want to log in and play on server. But this could change that perception quite a bit. Mamie, go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to say that can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. It has been really great to be back. Having gone from, coming here as a pubbie or a PvP, or leaving here a role player, and then, spending the next 6 years of my life doing something I really love to do because it was introduced to me here, is something I hold very dearly and remember always. So I just want to say that out of the box. That being said, I would like to, without getting jumped on and without being negative about it, request that I brought 7 people with me when I first came here because I wanted them to experience this and see it. Doug is unusual, and the idea of what Doug has allowed all of these years is what has contributed to its success as well. It's that dirty, gritty, apocalyptic environment and knee-jerk reactions to getting just popped on the coast, by a sniper or whatever's going on. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's frustrating. People get frustrated, and it is what it is. However, I have seen some behavior by people that I would expect better of. I've of all 7 that I brought here, they are very not used to this. These are people who come from servers that are so rigid in their rule sets that you lose a little bit of the quality of the role play along with it as well. I just want people to think that when you shoot somebody, you stop any role play that's happening. Andy and I came back, and I know most of you know Ember. We came back with the intention of just experiencing this again, growing together, coming back with something that we didn't have before, or I didn't have before. And it took us 7 days to actually get together and able to connect in the server because of the amount of kind of some of the stuff that was going on the coast. These are from some of these behaviors from members who've been here for a very long time and should know better. Not saying that I mind it. Like I said, sometimes it's okay, but 7 days it was rough. We finally did it with the help of some friends, and I think solo play is harder too, significantly harder. I do want to say that. And like I said, knee-jerk reactions. I'm streaming now, which I did not do before. And that also is like, that taints that a little bit as well, because you get frustrated. You want to give your viewers something to look at, not you getting shot and repeat, rinse, repeat, going. And that's my problem. That's my, streamer's problem, not necessarily a problem of Doug. But I really would just like to ask that you think about what you're offering people and what they see when they step in here. And I'm so impressed with the first days that I came in here and met the BTG. They were, I think, some of the first people that I had an interaction with. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to say. And like I said, I'm not trying to say that anything should change, because Doug is unique because of the way that it is. But, I do get, I snap sometimes when shit happens. I mean, 7 days, we've been trying to get together, and you get to a point where that last time is like, God damn it, guys, come on, Anyway, it's good to be back. Thank you for BTG for making this a wonderful experience. Thank you, Fireflies, and all the people that I used to know that are still here. And that's it. So I'm long-winded. I'll quit. Thank you.
Go ahead, Louis.
I just wanted to say that I stopped in and chatted with Diesel a bit about the Sakal server. It looks like events were broken on it, so the scientist wasn't spawning, and Bohemia must have used an old events XML that didn't have some things. The scientist wasn't on there, so applying the winter Santa sleighs removed the reindeer spawns, removed the scientist spawn, removed the shipping containers. So after the next Sakal restart, that should all be fixed.
Nice.
For those that can't get into Doug because of queues, jump over on Sakal.
This is like the old thing that used to thing that someone used to say at the end of every community meeting. It was now if everyone that's in this community meeting logged on, we'd have a full server. It's now become if everyone was in the queue logged on to Sakal, we'd have a pretty populated Sakal server.
I will say that ammo is much more abundant on Sakal, and so maintaining a base and the whole break-in mechanic is probably way too easy on Sakal. So building something and trying to protect it would be tough. So I just wanted to mention the Sakal server should be fixed.
Fair enough. I wasn't even aware that it was broken, but I'd not played on it. I'd not got that far on it, at least. Just kind of ran around, enjoyed it for a little bit. Anyway, I suppose we should probably move on to the next topic. The next topic comes from Matt, who has prior informed me that he's not going to be able to make it today. So, topic is a discussion on whitelisted members or members of official groups purposely avoiding interactions. I've seen and heard of it happening a lot this wipe, and I think it sucks. Either the community or group isn't correcting their members or they don't care. Either way, I think it would go a long way if we worked on it. Matt had said if no one really had anything to say on this topic, then we can just move on. I mean, that's kind of a standard thing with most topics, but if anyone has any sort of piece they'd like to say on this topic, then absolutely go ahead. If not, then we can move on to the next one. Right, okay. If we've got nothing on that topic, then we can move to the next one, which comes from Greenie. I'm not sure if Greenie is here. Too many damn different faction tags and names and blah blah blah. Okay. When they say avoiding interactions, I imagine it is people not responding to RP or just basically what Solus said. Not responding to RP, just sitting behind the walls of their base, or just someone getting held up and just being oh, kill me, just kill me, just kill me, or just going silent, I guess, would probably be another one of them. Jesus.
RP is encouraged.
Encouraged, but not enforced. Anyway. Well, yeah, there's always going to be those people that you run into. I imagine most of the people that you'll run into doing that are specifically for lack of a better term, pubbies, or just people that are new to the server and don't really know what to expect. But if it's like actual fucking members and members of official groups, then they should definitely know better. I feel like if it's non-members and like less Doug experienced people that are doing this, then some sort of like, hey, like, just so you know, that's not how we do things around here. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge would probably be the best approach for it. But if it's like someone that's really should know better, then perhaps perhaps it should be more of like a warning of a, hey, you should know better than this. Don't do that. Oh, Sterling, you're next in queue.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So I do want to say that it has been brought up in the chat a couple of times. There was somebody who was from BTG who actually did jump out of a vehicle mid interaction. And I don't want anybody to think it's not going unnoticed, because this person has been reprimanded, has been talked to, and also should not receive any more hate on the back end, mostly because this person is still new to Doug. You know, kind of like what you were hitting on. People are still kind of figuring out like what to do. New people are joining. This guy's only been on here a few months, so he's still trying to figure everything out and like what it's like and what the etiquette of the server is. And there's a lot of guys that are like that. And if ever you have a problem with BTG or the group or somebody in the group of BTG, feel free to hit me up. I mean, BTG, we're not like a closed off kind of area. I know a lot of people have their opinions, but feel free to reach out, because in all honesty, I'm more than likely going to be able to help you with it. But this guy has since felt really bad about this. So if we could just kind of like ease the gas on him a little bit, that would be great. Because he's still learning just as many people are. And I'm not saying I'm not guilty, but I would also like to, you know, kind of add more to that fire of let's give people a little bit of grace and patience. But that's all I have to say.
Fair play. Yeah, we all make mistakes, rash decisions, things that suck, and I'm sure he knows, or they know, it sucks and that it will not be repeated. We are not we are not products of our mistakes, or whatever the fuck the quote is. I have no idea. We can learn from them and improve, or something along those lines. All orphans in the apocalypse. Right. If we are happy to move on to the next topic, then I can do. So if you want to speak anything more on this, speak now or forever hold your wished. Right. Next topic comes from Greenie, whom I don't think is here. So I will read it out as follows. A discussion about how we can do a better job of holding groups and group leaders accountable for their members' behavior. Official groups and factions on Doug are held to a higher standard as stated in the Factions and Doug etiquette post on the subreddit. I'm not going to quote all of that because we'll be here all day, but this excerpt explicitly mentions factions, but I believe it should apply to official groups as well. Through talking to more than a few people OOC this wipe, it is apparent that there is a fair amount of anti-community behavior that is occurring by members of various groups on Doug, both IC and OOC. I would like to have a discussion hearing about people's experiences and what they think holding people or groups who exhibit anti-community behavior accountable would look like. Matt was supposed to take this topic, and Matt is not. I mean, I guess it is pretty similar to Matt's like previous topic. Go ahead, Oz.
I was just gonna say that for anyone that doesn't know, like as of right now, any player that's on the roster for a group or faction, their rule breaks and just overall attitude is taken into account for that group. So groups on the back end, they are accountable for their members' actions. There's a responsibility that every group has to make sure that their members understand the rules, especially if they're newer, And when we see rule breaks coming from, newer players in a group that has veterans on the server, there's just no reason that they shouldn't be caught up to date on some of the etiquette on Doug and like what we don't want to see and stuff. So just to quickly touch on that, there is some accountability on the back end for sure. When a player that's part of any roster is involved in a rule break, that comes back on the group. So when groups are pushing for faction status, for example, and one of those requirements is keeping a clean slate in terms of rule breaks and their record overall, those rule breaks by their members are considered when like making that decision and stuff like that. So
very well said, Oz. Anyone else have anything they'd like to interject here? If not, then we can move on to the next topic. I guess these past two topics were... Actually, this next topic from Echo is also kind of similar. So I guess we can just quickly shove this in here. Meme notes by whitelisted members. Intentionally leaving meme notes with no intent to push story, particularly after raiding a base. Might as well squeeze this in because it really is... these past three topics do feel like kind of a... all ingredients of the same sandwich, if you'll pardon my shit analogy. Anyone have anything they'd like to say specifically on Echo's point? A meme note would be... they'd leave a note back. They'd leave a note at the end of, like, a raid, I imagine would be the primary example. And instead of it being something of substance, or being like, this is retribution for what you've done to us, and then signing it with their group name, and just generally giving them something story-wise, or like, something to go off of to like to try and find out who did it, it will just be like, get fucked, Lamau. And then nothing else. Or something like that. Oz, go ahead.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. So you guys probably know that it's not required to leave a note after a raid on Doug, but there is certainly an expectation of our members to want to take that extra step for sure. And that's why you can see that when you use the raid command in the Discord, there's the lengthy kind of blurb about how raiding works on Doug, and it kind of is capped off at the end with a statement about how we encourage players to leave a note. Yeah, straight meme notes suck, but leaving a note in general is a good step in the right direction. I don't want to encourage false flag notes and things like that. It leads nowhere 99% of the time. And like a lot of us probably know, claiming your actions, or a group claiming their actions as often as possible, goes a really long way. So I'm sure a lot of people know that already. It's appreciated by everybody when you leave a note claiming your actions and give other players something to follow up on. If you're leaving a note after a raid, you've already taken the W, you successfully raided them. Now give people a chance to kind of do something back. So
I just want to say as well, obviously, like, if you've raided someone, and then as you're, like, about to leave a note, then, like, the people that you're raiding start, like, showing up and, like, murdering the shit out of you. Obviously, you don't worry about it. They've already seen you, most likely. We always try and, like, leave at least something to go off of if we're raiding in Dam, and obviously, but obviously if suddenly we have, like, a bunch of people jumping down our throats, it will quickly drop down our priority list. True, you can also, even if you, like, I don't know, in the moment forget to leave a note, or, like, no one's got paper and pen, you could just make some sort of, like, I don't know, radio broadcast announcement thing where you're basically just claiming it, talking shit about it, within reason, of course. IC talking shit. Stories too. Stories also work. So yeah, it's best to at least leave them some breadcrumbs to follow IC, because like when you get, obviously, especially if you've got like fully rated, it's quite a big hit. So for it to just be like fully rated and then have nothing to go on IC can feel pretty shit. I think that's also another I don't know if I don't actually know what's. I think that's actually. I feel like a meme note would probably be worse because it's like, well, they left a note, but it's dog shit instead of it just being like, oh, well, maybe they like just forgot to leave the note. Oh, we got some threats in the chat. Them's fighting words. Anyway, now that we're through all of these topics, at least I believe, of course, here is your final chance to say something on this topic before we move on. Right, okay, next topic is from Ivy. I don't know if Ivy is here. Oh boy, we're doing so good today. Discussion on how we talk to new players complaining about KOS or server difficulty, especially in Doug General. TLDR, whitelisted members need to be collectively more thoughtful about how we try to help new players in the Discord, especially when they're talking about KOS and server difficulty. Make better use of rules and FAQ, and use those helpful commands, and more often just direct people to ask an admin. Consider whether the thing you want to say has already been said, and whether it's truly what that person needs in the moment, less trying to fix their experiences and more encouragement. I'll not read the whole thing, because we'll be here for 5 years, and I've already talked enough, I'm sure. I take it we're... Is there a reason we're skipping this? I see Solus has popped into the queue. Is there something that I'm missing out on here? Go ahead, Solus.
My queue is the prior topic. I was just going to mention on top of the notes, specifically, if you're taking a moment to put pen to paper, make sure that it's not just last hurrah, like Oz said, you got the W, you did the raid. If you're going to take your time to put pen to paper, put something there. Have it planned beforehand. Like, what do you want the people who log into that to see? Rather than the examples that got posted.
Understandable. Yeah, like, obviously, raids are stressful times. Lots of prep work often goes into them, but definitely try and consider what sort of message you're gonna leave behind, or what hint you're gonna give to go on.
Yeah, and that's ultimately why leaving a note can't really be like a requirement to raid, because then you have these situations where you don't have pen or you don't have paper, or you are getting contested mid-raid now, and it's not as simple as you raiding and taking off with no contest whatsoever. So we understand that there's nuances to that, and either way, I think this is one of those things that's best put in our etiquette. This is behavior we want to see on Doug, and hopefully people, players that come in and stick around for a little while will quickly notice stuff like that. So
go ahead, Clyde.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that if you're raiding and the people are home and you're able to actually talk to them during the raid, you don't have to leave a note in that instance. Mm-hmm. They'll know who did it, and you'll probably have a chance to tell them why.
Mm-hmm.
On a similar vein, talk during fucking raids.
Yeah, use the opportunity to talk shit, to air your grievances. It's some of the best talking you can do.
And you might even be able to talk your way out of it, or change the situation entirely.
Many times talking during raids can change everything. Like so the people might say, "Oh, we just want this. Open up, and we'll take just this one thing," and it happens more than you'd think.
Few circumstances I can think of where
yeah, we're talking. You can talk the raiders out of raiding you. It's definitely happened. So.
Oh god, I remember that that time we stormed up to the fucking wizard's castle, and then we ended up getting talked out of raiding them, and then ended up arranging a raid on someone else. That was pretty funny.
There's essentially no downside to talking during a raid. Like, the worst case scenario is you still get raided, but you got to at least say something. So best case scenario is you don't get raided.
Might as well talk your shit regardless of whether you get hit or not. Please leave some food behind.
Oh, the other thing to be mentioned is that, yeah, if no one does show up while you're raided and you left your note, put put stuff back into storage so it doesn't just despawn on the ground as much as you can safely.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess why we have so many people in here, and I know a lot of people in this call do seem to be whitelisted members or people that have been around for a while. So a lot of us here probably know that. But yeah, when you raid a place and you're leaving items on the ground, which happens, like you might be stealing some of their storage and stuff like that, and obviously you're not going to be able to find a home for all of that stuff you're dropping. But more importantly, when you have an uncontested raid, the base owners are not online or not somewhere else on the map or whatever the case is. If you have the opportunity and safety to do so and put some stuff away to minimize the amount that's despawning, that's just good attitude. But again, it's nuanced, right? It's not always an easy raid. Sometimes you're getting contested. Sometimes there's nowhere else to store anything. So yeah, just be mindful of that either way.
Hell, we've actually in Dam had raids where we've been using C4 and the C4 has destroyed a bunch of storage, and we've had times where after we're leaving the base that we're raiding, after we've left, we'll just shoot the base owner a quick DM, be like, hey, you should go check on this place. We had it and we couldn't, a bunch of the storage got destroyed, so we couldn't put the stuff away. Just if you want to save all your stuff. I think that happened when we raided the dugout at one
If I
point.
had it my way, we would DM the person who lives at the base 10 to 15 minutes before we get there, but I don't think we're ever going to actually do that.
Ring the bell. Knock, knock, we're coming. So yes, give people something to go on when you raid them. Be nice, be clean, be civil. Obviously, if your raid is contested, then I don't know, do what you got to do, and talk to people. Right, if that is all we need to say on this topic.
Mamie, I really sound like this. There you
go. Worse. He's less nasally. Damn, we're getting some real fucking revelations here. Anyway, our next topic comes from Desync. Oh, eventually I'm sure we're going to have someone that's here. Are players interested in seeing a return to the Livonia server as a replacement to the Sakal server or as an additional third server? If possible, would players be interested for the full experience to be split between these maps like official DayZ, and or a way to transfer your played character between the three maps? I'm actually quite intrigued by this topic myself. I don't know how I'd feel about the whole servers being on a hive, though. I think that would get a bit messy, because sometimes, if I'm playing on Doug and doing things on Doug, it doesn't usually mean that I want to be able to move my Doug stuff onto Sakal and then run around there. I usually would want them to be, separate things. I think the hive is a little bit much, in my opinion, but I guess we shall see. Our first queue is Vadim. If you would like to proceed.
You pretty much just nailed what I was going to say. When it comes to the characters between the three maps, I think that's a terrible idea. The only reason is that sometimes even on 90 plus people, you have trouble finding people on Doug. I don't know if I'm the only one that's experienced that, but the hive thing, terrible idea in my opinion, based on that. The additional maps, I don't really care whether or not that happens. My concern is splitting populations between the servers. I think Doug should be the priority.
Sarge is next in queue.
Yeah, I know I was at first when Desync mentioned something about a hive type of experience. I've always kind of had some thoughts on that in the past, but a lot of people pointed out what the downsides and negatives could be. And I would agree. I don't think that would be good at the end of the day. However, with the idea of an additional third server or replacement of this call server, I had a really nice chat with a pretty new member of Doug, actually, Unicorn, who was running with the Merrymen for a little bit. I had the chance to, and then she went off and has found her own way. But I was chatting with her finally for the first time out of game, and I learned that she used to run Deer Isle server. She gave me permission to kind of bring this up because she used to do Deer Isle. It was an RP server that she was an admin on. And I think that could be a really cool potential map opportunity now, given that there's boats. She discussed like there's this really nice mod that you can actually craft rafts as well. I just wanted to throw that out there because, Deer Isle I've never even played on, but I've heard it's pretty cool, and I know I think Brun brought up in the last year or two about like an alternative server for Doug, but the main issue was the lack of boats. But now with boats being in the game, I don't know how other people maybe would feel about that. And I'll leave the floor open for whoever's next.
Yuri is next, or Juri, however you pronounce it. Sorry.
Hi, it's Yuri. Yeah, just about the hive thing mentioned. As some people in the chat has been also writing, I think that would be a very detrimental thing to do. Like, if I just look at how luck worked, the loot economy was way different, and things were much easier to get, especially because there were so few people. Like, melee zombies would would still spawn with plate carriers on them, and simple towns could be found with just a lot of military loot. So you could easily jump on, I don't know, Lug or Sug, loot a lot of melee gear, and then bring it on Doug. And I think that would also then indirectly ruin the loot economy on Doug. Things were so easy to get.
Is that you done, Yuri?
Yeah.
Alright, Carter is next.
It's going to be wild and far-fetched and kind of out there, but I agree too that the whole map length thing, horrible idea. But what if your character, once they go from, like, let's say, Cherno to Livonia, like, there's somewhere in the stats notes that Steam ID cannot go back and forth. They have to stay there for like a month or like 2 weeks or something. And it's like only whitelisted people can do that. Just a suggestion. I'm done.
Solus, you're next.
Say, looking at the multiple servers, I think Livonia was big for what Doug was. It was before my time, but I know a lot of players that would prefer that, especially with the map being free. I think now with the queue, that would single-handedly fix the issue. People would be interested in both. They would maintain their stories that they've got going on Trinaris or go try out Livonia. With a little bit more moderation, I guess just want to make sure it's not just a deathmatch server that people waste like their free time on from the Doug area. Regarding the hive idea, I don't think that's ever going to be something that works out properly with the different mods that accumulate and make that effect. Even if you're not talking about any type of loot whatsoever, just the simple act of your character being able to swap between these lands, you're going to need to care. Are you immediately causing a fresh spawn? Are you dropping your character on random Livonia spawns by changing servers? Are you exploiting by coming right back to Trinaris and dropping your character on the coast with the fresh spawn with all your gear? With that, ultimately, there's too much overhead to care about that, and it's already an RP server. If you're going to RP that Solus has, or whoever your character is, wandered over to Livonia somehow, don't RP that you took a commercial airliner right back to Trinaris because you didn't like Livonia for 2 days. Like, just have some sense in what you say to the people around you that you meet, and don't just say, yeah, I was in Livonia yesterday, and blah, 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 blah. It's all there available for us. But functionally, we cannot have actual players like with one Steam ID bouncing between like map to map, and it's not tenable. That's it.
Right. While I will admit that I was intrigued by Carter's suggestion of there being, I guess, for lack of a better word, a cooldown on the whole traveling from map to map, yeah, I think we would be at risk of just seeing a bunch of people like getting geared up on Lug and then just immediately snap the fingers and then boom, I'm on Tronaris. Who cares about Lug anymore? I do think though that I would love to see Lug return, especially now that the map is no longer behind a paywall. I think that's quite a big thing. Like Livonia, like Lug, sure it had its like peaks and lulls, but it did have quite a dedicated little base of players that would play it. Though I think it was expressed in the past that staff were hesitant about making things like armbands or flags or stuff for it because of the because of like it was behind a paywall, and they felt like kind of a bit weird about like making stuff that would only be accessible to people that paid X amount of money. And maybe, I mean, I'm not saying that I would expect Lug to have the full like shebang, full faction support, full all that, because I know it's already kind of I think in the past it was a bit of a logistical nightmare for trying to moderate it and moderate Doug at the same time, but I do think it would be certainly an avenue worth exploring, and if the plug needs to be pulled on the Sakal server for it, then, like, fair enough. Like, I see no problem with that. British Paul is after me.
Yeah, just to expand on Carter's idea, I don't know if this would work now, I'm thinking of it, but or maybe in addition to Carter's idea, what if it was very difficult to go from map to map, like a bit like in the mouse endgame, like you had to have certain stuff and do something, and it was quite tedious, and it was a big thing to do it, and you wouldn't be able to come back instantly. You'd have to go through another whole mission to get back. So it wouldn't be like you could just go there, get stuff, come back. I don't know if that would work, but it's just an idea. There you go.
Bedtime, you're up.
Sorry, I'm a Discord user. This is not my native environment. Just wanted to say, as one of the people who was one of the long-standing Lug people, that I mean, there is a possibility that you've got a full Doug server and a full Lug server in the future. I know people are anticipating that stuff might drop off, but Lug got really popular, and I watched over the course of 3 years, like 4 or 5 different groups, because of stuff that happened, try to start something similar to Lug before it was pulled. And I think if the leadership of Doug could come up with some kind of like statement about their support for Lug, or just like a commitment that they're not going to take it down in 6 months, there could be the return of just like countless amounts of people. I don't know if that's something that you're interested in, but it is a possibility. And I just appreciate everyone talking about the subject.
Well, I just put a little message that Carter's next in queue. I think you're done bedtime, so Carter, you're up.
Yep.
To kind of like bring up what British Paul said, we can make it like the staff. I mean, like we're talking about like really over engineering something. If we were to, go from Livonia to Tronaris, you can make it like a secret thing that nobody knows. You have to figure it out yourself. I don't know if it's something that would interest anyone, like some secret way to get to Livonia and back.
Even if there was a secret way, like as soon as the first few people find it, like it's just going to spread like wildfire.
True.
One of the things as well is I think, when there was Lug, I think it was pretty well understood that it's like your characters are separate, and your Doug and your Lug character, for example, is separate. Personally, I feel like that's the best way to go about it. Like separate maps should be separate characters, separate stories, nothing connected, just to keep it simple and straightforward. And I know there was a lot of fans of Lug, and I would be curious to see that now that's not behind a paywall. I think it could be like just a good secondary server, maybe like comparing it to the current popularity of SUG. Like I think it would naturally be a little bit more popular than that, at least just for the simple fact that it's not behind a paywall. And considering the last time we had Lug, it was behind a paywall, and there was still, some amount of success behind it. I think that could only be exaggerated now that it's free.
I think it's also, I think someone else touched on it before, that especially now that we're just seeing this. I mean, Doug's up to 90 players and is still pulling like fucking 30-man queues. Obviously, again, as has been said, we don't really know if this is gonna last like forever, if it's gonna last like a week, 2 weeks, a month, God knows what. But I think that also could draw some people into at least trying Lug. And I think once they have their foot in the door and they've got like time invested, they're starting to think of a new character. Maybe they're seeing stuff around the map that's kind of inspiring them and like, oh, I could try and make a character like this. I could try and make a character like this. I think it could do quite a lot to kind of endear people to Lug. Holy shit, it's Teddick the Medic. Nice. It can do a lot to kind of endear people to Lug and kind of get, for lack of a better term, get its claws into them and make them kind of, oh my god, I want to stick around, I want to see what happens next, I want to see what characters I run into, blah 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 blah. Another thought that I had was obviously how officials kind of handles Lug and like Livonia and Chernaris. I mean, it has like Livonia. I'd like to lean into the kind of how the weather is different on Lug, like where it's a bit warmer. Obviously, it's not like it's super duper mega cold on Chernaris for good reason, because we don't want to shoot PID in the back of the head. But it could even be a way. My first thought was like a way to test like some other funky like CLE things, or maybe even try just making the CLE like a little bit more forgiving in some senses. But I don't think we want to. That could also be like a bit of a logistical nightmare to manage, and I obviously would never want it to be as mind-numbingly easy as officials at all. Anyway, I've rambled enough. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say on the Lug train, the server hive train? Though I think it seems we have quite a consensus, though obviously we've got some other ideas floating around. Bedtime, go ahead. I've not missed any other cues, actually. Let me check. Oh,
Sorry
you're good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry to make the point again. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think even a simple paragraph, just to be really clear, from the admin team welcoming people who kind of fled Lug over the years. There was huge waves of it. And like there were people trying to create a similar community elsewhere. I think that some kind of olive branch toward those folks, even if they never read it and it never makes it to them, it could bring back a giant player base. And I know things have changed in the community, and it would just be really cool to see a lot of those folks come back. That's all.
Yeah, I think Lug definitely had quite a distinctive and like passionate community going on, and I know that for some, I know from speaking to some of them, a lot of them kind of had this feeling for some reason that like the Doug staff hated them or that they were out to get them or something like that. But yeah, I think.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
You've got probably more experience on Lug than me. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was some of the messages that some of the comments that admins made that genuinely like made people on Lug feel pretty left out, and then ultimately shutting the server down. But there was a lot of folks on Lug who could never get whitelisted, so all of the stories were never published. They didn't even have access to some of the channels where discussions were happening. So some of the folks I talked to felt kind of left out. I'm not saying it was on the admin team that did anything wrong. I'm just thinking about the future and thinking like even some kind of small addressing of just what happened, just acknowledging it, and that like something new is coming, it could go a long way. And it wouldn't even have to be phrased in a negative way. But some commitment that, Lug's going to be around would be huge. If that's what everyone decides.
Go ahead, Sarge.
Sorry, I mean, is the consensus essentially at this point, right? Hive server, no one really seems to fully support that. I don't think that'd be something that you'd want to even try to implement right off the bat when adding a second map or third server or something like that. But is it pretty much right now we're all just looking at Lug at this point? Livonia as the alternative map there, or is there still other options out there that people are wanting a chance to discuss?
I would think that other maps are certainly on the table, though of course, given that we've done Livonia in the past, and there's already like clearly a sort of sect of the community that's quite a fan of Livonia, I think that would probably be like the easiest one. Also logistically, because obviously, as someone said in the chat earlier, Deer Isle,
that's me.
Yeah, Deer Isle has like 26 tiers or some crazy shit like that, and that would be kind of wild, especially considering that, I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, normal Chernaris has 4 tiers, and Livonia has 3, so 26 is quite a fucking jump up.
I do, I think, remember that being brought up in a discussion way back too as an issue, or one of the main problems why it hasn't been considered really in the past. So that makes sense. But I think Carter said Bitterroot. I did love Bitterroot. That'd be kind of cool, but that's also a pretty newer one still.
Like I've
anyway.
always been a thorough Namalsk enjoyer, but like I think it's as evidenced from Sakal. Like I don't think there's as much appetite for like Namalsk Sakal kind of servers with the, I guess, Doug flavor. Obviously Sakal's server was mostly just like mostly vanilla, but with some like little sprinklings of the Doug mod in there. But I think Livonia would probably gel the best to it.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of clarify on everybody, but that's all I had to say.
But yes, I think this has been quite a productive little discussion. Of course, I mean, I guess I can just put in my like 2 cents on like what Log was to me. Obviously, I didn't play it on it as much as like some of the other loggers, if you will, but it was always just kind of like a fun server where I could just like run around. Obviously, like not like I was just using it as a bloody deathmatch. Like I still enjoyed running into people and chatting with them and like thinking of what characters I could make. But I'm also like gameplay wise, I'm also a big fan of the Doug mod. So having like another kind of Doug server also felt pretty good. And obviously, Doug best server, real. Also, Benjamin, you are next in queue.
So, about a year ago, I think the discussion of Lug came up, and it was quickly, it was quickly like thrown to the side. No one was really interested in it. Like admin support and stuff like that. One of the main reasons was that like population was so low on the main server, and that's why no one wanted to like dilute the population onto that server as well. I think at the moment, like Doug's doing great population wise. Let's not get carried away and potentially split the player base again, because we could be in a similar spot in 6 months where population goes low again, and then you're also diluting the player base, and we don't want to be in another spot that if we bring back all the Lug players and people love it, you then have to shut down that server again, because they'll be very upset. They've probably only just got over the fact that it got shut down now, maybe most of them. So just be careful is all I'm saying.
Solus, you're next.
I want to echo what Benjamin is saying there. It's going to be very important to be with a light hand on what changes we're making with the maps being available. Sakal being up and kind of just being somewhere where 2 or 3 people play from time to time is fine. Pushing to get Livonia back in the mix is going to pull a lot of old loyal people from Doug that want to maybe, even if they don't stay with Livonia, they're going to try to build up something and make it something to offer the rest of the player base in that meantime. We don't want to split it too far, but it's very important to also mention where Sakal is going to maybe need to be cut out so we don't have that extra bit. If you remember when Frostline was announced, we're probably talking late 2025 or early 2026, but Bohemia is releasing a second map similar to Frostline. They're doing an entire additional DLC that's going to cause this entire like argument again. Like, do we open up whatever that server is going to be for a month and a half? And it's just being prepared for the questions before they happen. Yep.
Poopy, you're next.
I mean, I was kind of just gonna go with on what Ben was saying. Is that it's just like I could be wrong about this, but I think that when the Sakal idea was coming out, everybody was talking about how they wanted it so much, and then it's had like one pop for the last however many months, you know. So like, I get wanting to do other things too, you know, that's kind of cool, but I think that just to reiterate it is that it just doesn't seem like we haven't had this pop for a while, right? There was long periods of 20 pop, 30 pop, right? I think we should just let this stir and go with this for a while. But yeah.
I see both sides, and I think it's definitely a good point of the like we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot, like dilute the pot, and then find that suddenly down the line we've got like 30 pop servers, and then we're like, ah, fuck. But I think that, well, especially with Livonia, fucking hell, being free, that could bring in a lot of people. Obviously, it is a fair comparison to Sakal, and also pointing back to Nug as well. But I feel that because of like the relative like difficulty of Sakal and like Namalsk, especially like in that first like couple weeks of Namalsk being out, it was just a bloodbath because no one knew how to survive on the map. And then Sakal, I think it was like a bit more populated at first, but it just kind of died out again. I think there might be some correlation there between the, I guess, difficulty of the map, the whole cold environment thing. I'd be certainly intrigued to see how it would go with a Livonia server, and I think it's questions that should be asked, and it's good that it was asked here for sure, but obviously, yeah, we don't want to spread the staff too thin as well. It's kind of clear that they do a lot as is, and there's a lot of stuff that, especially if we're gonna be rolling out this priority queue thing. If we do that, of course, there's no guarantee just yet. Then that'll also, I'm sure there'll be a massive influx of fucking whitelist applications of people being like, want priority queue, please. So anyone else have any other thoughts they'd like to throw into this? If not, then we can move on to the next topic. We don't need to beat this one to the death. Right. Last call, speak now or forever hold your peace, or we're moving on to the next one. And final one, actually. Well. Congratulations, Sarge. I'm pretty sure you are the first fucking person that's actually here to present their topic. Not throwing shade at people, of course, because, like...
No, sure, throw it.
Yeah. It is your time to shine. You finally get to not hear me for a little bit.
I've already talked enough today, but yeah, I mean, I just popped that in there kind of last minute here, because it was something that's been on my mind for a bit, and I just didn't know how to word it at first, but yeah, I mean, it's essentially, it feels like a lot of the solos within Doug today, especially the ones that have been around a lot, that are whitelisted, that contribute so much. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for them to get some of these benefits that you see that some of these groups and factions get when they meet these certain requirements. Just because they're not a part of a faction or a group that becomes faction that gets, you know, their armbands, their items, all these extra stuff, right? Doesn't mean that I feel like they should be any less valued as part of the community as a whole, really. I just really don't know, I guess, what any of those benefits would look like or requirements to get them. That's what I wanted to discuss. And obviously, you know, Joe and Dill had mentioned that they had also been in discussion, have a few things that they wanted to bring or discuss today. So I'm just going to hand that over to them and let them take it away.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, we've discussed this a little bit. Nothing concrete in place, but it's something we'd like to do. Currently, the thought is that as far as what we'd offer, it would probably be limited to map changes. For things like POIs, I don't know, St. Joe's, Waldorf's, places like that, places that last a long time and are quite significant to the server. As for requirements, it's probably just going to be if we think you're doing a good job. I know that's unsatisfying to hear, but it's probably the best way forward. If we think that something's worth sort of immortalizing on server, then we will. Not a whole lot more I can offer at this stage. When it comes to items, I think those are a lot more work than you realize, and it would be very difficult to start offering custom items and stuff like that for people.
I mean, the example, I guess, that like flies into my head immediately, it would be, and this isn't really even like a new item per se, but I always thought back to like Toronto back when he was still alive. Him being the last guardian, I always thought that it would be kind of cool if he could like, he was like the only one able to like make guardian armbands, or if he could get like a single guardian armband or something like that that he could use. Obviously he's long gone now, a few years gone, but I think
but
something like
consider
that would
the
be cool.
following: if we give people that, and then the rest of their group decides to come back, then suddenly, boom, their group has a faction perk that we didn't give to them. So we have to be quite careful about how we roll these things out.
True. Right. Solus, go ahead.
Rather than like maybe an item to celebrate that person as a solo, because people come and go and they're inactive and stuff, and so it's its own gripe. But say they've got a couple of different people volunteering for the map team as well. Like it's just like Fox mentioned as well. Map change would be something huge. You'd want to avoid doing anything that's not overly subtle for maybe a solo that's made a splash somewhere, made an effort. But I think depending on what the map team's capable of, something very small, like even just small like civilian items that are maybe on a bookshelf somewhere in the game world that you can't pick up, that maybe people pass all the time without thinking about it, but they do represent maybe a solo that existed in the
We're
area for a
capable
short
of
time.
small scale map edits like that, and I think that's what we'd have in mind, basically.
That would be huge. It could just as easily maybe slip away if for some reason that person wasn't intended to be honored anymore, or just stuff like it could become real lore within the server as well. And then I think as long as that person knows that they exist or that was the intention when it was added, then you can honor people in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, so we've already got this sort of thing for old factions. I'm sure many of you will have found a few of those. But yeah, it's something we could expand for sure.
Yeah, more like little subtle tweaks like that, I think would be really cool. Like graves are a pretty good idea, though I guess if you went a little bit too crazy with it, you run the risk of like just the entire place being littered with graves. Though I mean, fucking hell, Chernarus probably would be at this rate. Though it's also something that the DayZ devs themselves do. I know you can basically apply or send them like a ticket or something like that if you've had like a friend, like a close friend that you played DayZ with, or they played DayZ a lot, and they'll try and like put in like some sort of memorial like grave, either like at the last spot they logged out or at like a spot that they really liked to kind of frequent. But yeah, I think it would be really cool to have a plot like done for especially some like of the more noteworthy characters. And the existing like stuff that's been added by Doug is really fucking cool as well. Well, anything else anyone would like to bring up? I don't think I've missed any. Yeah, there's been a few little map changes. Not that I want to spoil any of that. I'd rather people find it organically or whatever. But yeah, books and tapes are also always nice. Right. Well, if no one else has anything else to say, then I think that's going to be. Is there anything that staff would like to say while you have everyone here? I guess any announcements or anything. Though I think you've said quite a bit. Definitely optimistic about the whole prospect of that priority queue thing.
Just behave yourselves. Don't eat yellow snow.
Aww.
Have fun.
Right. I guess you can consider this class dismissed. Everyone get off my lawn. I'm gonna upload this video.
Thank God, I don't have to listen to you anymore.
Hey, you're the one that joined the fucking channel, pal.
Oh shit.
Jesus.
You're the one that joined the channel, and you're the ones that invited me to the group. That's all
I
I'm saying.
swear, I think he listens to this thing back and just
I want my fuck back.
Mom and Dad are fighting.
I hate it here.
Stop. Right. We'll now check the recording.